Welcome to the Power of Networking Group USA podcast, where we're building relationships on opportunity, not obligation. I'm your host, Brendan Elliott, here to spotlight local business professionals sharing their journeys, successes, and their best networking tips. Each episode is your inside track to genuine connections that grow your business and expand your network. Let's dive in and discover the story behind the businesses shaping our community. Welcome, Charlie and Colleen. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're super excited. We're looking forward to having you. So before we get started into some of the deeper conversations, why don't you just introduce yourselves, who you are, and what it is that you do?
Hi, I'm Colleen Boyle-Jolin. I'm a real estate agent with Keller Williams in Easton, and we have our own brand, Colleen and Company.
And I am Charlie Jolin, her husband.
Also, Charlie is a shining star in the Networking Group USA family as he runs the Shoveltown chapter of NGU, which was a former networking group of another organization that came over and joined our family. And we've had that experience in the past, and it hasn't always had great success. So one of the things I want to start out with you is to say thank you. Because the leadership that you show is great for your own chapter, but we use it as a shining example across the entire organization. And so we really appreciate that. And that's why when we were thinking about who else should we have on here for our second episode, I was like, we got to get Charlie, right? Let's get Charlie in here. And Gina was like, I was thinking the same thing, right? We're very excited to have you, right? Today is going to be a little bit about you. It's going to be a lot about highlighting your individual businesses. But also, I want to have a conversation of how networking has played a role in your success, right? And so, before we get into the business stuff, tell us the funny story of how you guys met.
Okay, I'll take this one.
Lean on in.
I was looking. I had come home to help my family out with a health problem, and so after fixing that, I was looking for an apartment. And my friend Mike and I were going to move to Boston and take it over and be two single guys hitting the town. Couldn't afford Boston, went south, came across Randolph, and I went into a apartment complex where she was behind the desk. And I asked her if they had apartments for rent, and she said no. And then she said, do you want a tour? And I said, sure. Because who doesn't say yes to that? When a pretty girl asks you to go for a tour, you go for a tour.
Absolutely.
So we took a tour, and after I filled out information, she said she would call me. I left, went home, told my future roommate. And I said, I'm going to go ask that girl out. And he said, go ahead. And I said, no, I'm going to. He was like, go ahead. So I said, I'll call you later. So I went in, and I walked into her office, and I said, hi, remember me? And she said, yeah, you were just here 2 days ago. We don't have any apartments still. And I said, I'm not here for an apartment. And she said, well, what are you here for? I said, I met you 2 days ago, haven't stopped thinking about you. Would you have dinner with me? And she said, I guess. I said, that sounds like a yes. And
wow.
The rest is history.
And the rest is history. And how long ago was that? There it is.
26 years ago.
Wow. That's an awesome story. And unfortunately, I don't feel like there's going to be too many more stories like that moving forward in the future because everybody swipes left or right or sends a direct message or pokes somebody on some kind of internet thing, right? I mean, if you were to ask a young man now to go in, drive somewhere, walk into a place of business, see a pretty girl, and then verbally put themselves on the line on the spot like that and be that vulnerable, I mean, my goodness. And so what were you were thinking, who the hell is this guy? Or what were we thinking?
Well, when I met him, the card we had everyone fill out, it was how many adults, how many children, and he wrote down 2 adults. So I did have a 1-bedroom, and I said, well, I could put you in a 1-bedroom. When a 2-bedroom comes up, we can transfer you. And he's like, well, I like my roommate, but I don't like him that much. And my exact thought was, damn, he's handsome and he doesn't live with a woman. But I let it go, and I didn't think anything more of it until he walked back through the door.
Wow. And there it is, and the rest is history 26 years later. Love that. Awesome. Good stuff.
She did get her revenge on our first date.
Oh boy. Okay, let's hear that. That seems like it's worth it.
Right.
We can spend as much time on this as we need, right? I love it.
After dinner, I said, I'm having a great time. Can we continue this? Do you know a place to go? I'm kind of new to the area. And she said, yeah, no problem. So she took me to Fisherman's Beach in Canton.
Randolph Canton
Randolph
line.
Canton.
Okay.
And so we're walking, and it's the woods, and it's 9 o'clock at night. And I look at her like halfway down the path. I look over her and say, "You're the bravest person I know." And she said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Who takes a 6'5" guy into the woods in the middle of the night?"
Right.
Yeah.
And she said, "We probably should go back to the car." I said, "Yeah." So we go back to the car. As soon as we get in and the doors close, we get lit up by the police.
No way. Oh,
And I open my door, and all you hear is, "Get back in the car."
wow.
So they come over, they get my license, registration, her license, comes back over and says, "You shouldn't be here. Why are you here?" "Well, we just went for a walk." He said, "Closes at dusk." I said, "Well, I'm new. I don't know that." He said, "She does. She's from Randolph."
Right on the license.
Well, then there you go, right? And the rest is history.
The rest is
Which is
history,
great.
yeah.
All right. So maybe that's a perfect segue into how did we get into, so we went from sitting behind the desk at an apartment complex
Yeah.
to how did we get into real estate as a career?
I did property management for 6 years, and I just knew that I was never going to make the money that I needed to make in this world. And I wanted an opportunity where there was no ceiling.
Okay.
So as hard as I worked, I could make as much money as I possibly could, and nobody was going to say, "No, you only make X, and this is when you have to work." So,
Yeah. I love that. Whenever I talk to anybody, more specifically in our industry of finance, but any entrepreneur that I speak with, I go, the only thing that a guaranteed salary is guaranteeing you is that that's all you're going to make that year.
exactly.
Right. And some people are built for that, and that's great.
Right.
But the people who aren't built for that are very not built for that. Right. And so, and I love that you eat what you hunt, right?
Right.
It makes you work harder. And the only person
Absolutely.
that you get to the only person that takes success when you succeed is the person staring back at you when you brush your teeth in the mirror. Right. And then the only person that you can blame is that same person.
Exactly.
Right. I love that. So you got into real estate. Were you always with Keller Williams, or did you start somewhere else?
No, I started with a small independent company in Randolph, and they it was at the time buyer agency was just coming new to Massachusetts, and the law was going to start in 2005, if I'm remembering correctly. And so I was so excited, and I went and got certified as a buyer's agent, and I went to my broker, and I'm like, "We can be on the cutting edge of this. It's so exciting. Like, we can offer buyer representation, and nobody else is doing that." And he looked at me and he slammed his hand down on the desk and he said, "We'll never represent buyers. We will never represent buyers, and we only represent sellers." And I was like, "Okay."
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know there was a difference. I mean, I've only known, I'm a little bit later to the game, and I bought my first house in 2015. So I didn't know that you had to have a separate, like that was a whole separate license and agreement to be a buyer and a seller.
It was a different certification,
Oh,
but
wow.
before 2005, everybody represented the seller, and it was a seller agency, and so everybody was a sub-agent
Okay.
of the listing agent,
Oh, wow.
basically. So buyers had no representation at all.
Wow.
Yeah, there was no buyer's agents.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
My goodness. Is this when like the phone like click 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 click
Hey,
click?
that's when I bought my first house. They're big fella. So slow down.
I was having a conversation the other day with somebody that a younger person didn't know what screening a call meant, or like what an answering machine was, or what it was like to go home and see the blinking light and to be able to listen to it, right? Like, what's that? And I went, oh, okay. Now I'm officially getting old. There it is. All right.
Yes.
So you get into real estate. Now Charlie, what did you do before you got into real estate? Were you always the real estate bug, or how did that fall in?
No, when I got out of college, I got recruited by a place in Maine, and I worked in a call center for credit cards.
Okay.
And then from there, when my stepfather got sick, I moved back home and started working in a bank, and realized that bankings didn't have the same level of service that the credit card company did. So I went back to a call center, and I went to life insurance, and I started working for Keyport, which was absorbed by Sun Life Financial.
Yep.
And then after Sun Life Financial, I went to Arbella Insurance.
Oh, okay.
And at one point they did a management change. I was part of the old crew that got packaged.
Okay.
And I came home and said, all right, I have to start a new career, and call centers aren't really prevalent in Massachusetts. So what are we doing? And she gave me 2 states to look at. So I started interviewing in other states, made it to the final round, knew somebody there. I was going to get the job. And then she said, I don't want to move.
Oh,
And I said, what do I do? And she said, come work for me.
okay. All
So-
right. There it is. You
so
try
here
to
I
drag
am.
them in the woods, right? You're dragging them around on apartment tours when there's no apartments open. I mean, this is like the making of The Shining. And then you can come work for
I
me.
did not scare her.
Yeah, right. Okay. All right.
So,
I'm glad I'm on this side of the table. No, that's good. That's good. That's good. So, I don't know. Obviously, Colleen, this is the first time that we've met, right? And Charlie, we've interacted with each
Mhm.
other a few times. And the times that we have interacted, obviously, you're a big personality, right? You command, a lot of attention when you walk into a room, which is great. But I don't know too much more about you other than that, right? And your leadership skills by the results, right? And so, what I do know is you really know how to network. And so, is that something that your boss taught you? Or is that something that came naturally? Is that something that was always a part of your business? Or maybe were you lagging and Charlie brought that in? Like, tell me that dynamic, because networking seems to be a big part of your business.
for me, it was when I was in the call centers, my whole rush was to get to management. And then I was there and I spent almost 20 years in management, and it was more educational than coaching. So it was, but I did watch her from when she joined real estate, and I was basically the Keller Williams Easton mascot. I went to every function they had. I went to all this stuff. And I also watched her grow with the networking chapter that she was part of. And so I got a lot of knowledge from just watching. And then when she gave me the seat, it just kind of worked for me because I am not a shy person. So
Yes.
so I have no problem approaching people, no problem getting them to join. And whether it was the call center and leading teams or networking, people seem to follow me. So
Okay.
I just go with it.
Okay.
So-
I love that. And so did he up your networking game, or did he take over for you? What, like, tell me that dynamic.
He took over. So I joined a chapter. Someone that I worked with at Keller Williams was leaving the industry, and his seat was opening up, and so he recommended me. And I was in competition with a few people, but I was chosen, and they had a lot of education, and it was really great for a lot of years. And I am kind of I like to learn, and so I went to all the trainings, and I went, to everything that I could learn about networking. I read the books, and then I just got burnt out, and I was doing something a little different. And I have coached businesses on the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book,
Mhm.
because every business needs the things that are in that book.
Yeah.
So I switched into another networking group, and he took over the real estate.
Nice. Very good. And you were in a leadership position in that organization as well, correct?
well, when I first joined, I was just a member for about a year plus, and then all of a sudden, somebody convinced me to be the president.
That's how it goes, right? What I've learned is I'm very eager as you're learning. I'm a very enthusiastic kind of guy, and so a lot of times if I see that there's a solution or something I can help, I raise my hand, right? And then I learned quickly that when you raise your hand, everybody goes, "Congratulations, you're in charge of that."
Yeah,
Right?
that's when I was given my first whistle on the sidelines of a youth game, and I knew nothing about lacrosse, and they're like, "Oh, you look like you're into it. Here's
Yeah.
a whistle."
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. And then you figure it out, right?
Yeah.
And then there's a type of people that will figure it out, and then there are the other types of people that won't, right? So, so the real estate market, right? It's hot, it's cold, it's booming. It's got during COVID and those few years after COVID, it was like every single person and their mother was like, you know what I'm gonna do? I've been a scientist for 30 years, so I'm gonna sell real estate, right? And it was like every Tom, Dick, and Harry decided they wanted to be a real estate agent. And I'm like, oh boy, you want to talk about a bubble that's about to pop? It is not a housing market bubble. It's not the real estate. I mean, the stock market. It is real estate with those agents that just flooded. How did you guys deal with the influx of competition, if you would even call them that? For somebody that's been in real estate for as long as you guys have, I mean, you've weathered all the storms. So tell us a little bit about what some of the keys to success have been for you to weather the housing market crash and the stock market crashes and COVID and whatever you call the influx of agents, whatever we'll call that.
Well, we've we've always taken really good care of our people, and we both like to learn things. So if you're going to be a professional real estate agent, you have to learn how to master the market. And it's whatever market is happening at that time. So if we go back in the Wayback Machine to, 2008 and 2009, I learned how to do short sales. I learned how to do foreclosures. And a lot of agents said, "Oh, I'm not going to do that."
Mhm.
And at that time, it was accounting for 30% of all sales. So I was getting 30% more sales than what the average agent
Mm.
was willing to do. And, a lot of people get into the real estate industry, and not many survive the real estate
Yeah.
industry because everybody, wants the flexible schedule. However, if you only have a flexible schedule, you are not going to do well. And, so people, I've had clients that says, "Oh, my niece just got, her real estate license. So, if anything happens, I'm going to use her." And I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely. Take care of family." However, a lot of those nieces made mistakes and did stuff that they didn't stay in the industry, or, and to be honest, anybody can sell a house if everything goes smoothly, right? I mean, people do it all the time. However, if there's a challenge that pops up, you need someone like us that has the years of experience, that does have the network, through networking to solve whatever problems pop up.
Yeah.
So that's a skill that a lot of people in real estate don't have. As we talked earlier, you said if a young man had to go across town and ask out a pretty girl, he probably wouldn't do it. Well, in real estate, if you're not willing to have the uncomfortable conversations with people, and it's not always what people want to hear, but it's what they need to hear
Yeah.
sometimes, uh, you need to be willing to have those conversations. And a lot of people aren't, and they shrink back and they don't really know what they're doing. So
Mm.
they lose their confidence. And so I would say one of the huge things for us is always staying on top of the market, interpreting the market, understanding the numbers. And, we've sold real estate in, I would say, probably 75 different communities in Massachusetts. And people are like, "How do you do that?" And once you can interpret a market and you know what reports and numbers to look at, you can do it.
Right.
And a lot of people just don't take the time to learn the basic things that they need to know and the conversations that they need to have at whatever time is going on in the market.
That's awesome. Yeah. Identify a need, right? And solve the problem. So
Exactly.
30%. I mean, my goodness. People are going to just throw that out the window like it's not, we're not going to do that. Okay. Well, I'll gobble that extra 30% up, right?
Well, exactly. And you see it the same thing with social media. People say, "Well, I'm not going to do this social media or that social media." And I'll admit I did kind of have that attitude a little bit because there's a lot of different social medias. And I had a coach that said to me, "It's not about what you want to do. It's about where the people you want to do business with, where are they at on their social media, and are they going to find you?"
Mm. Right.
And so it was like a light went off, and I was like, "Okay, yes."
Yeah.
So I need to be we need to be everywhere.
Yeah. I think the hard part with social media, because I battle that as well, right? And it's interesting because social media came out when I was a sophomore in college, right? And so I was that wave that came through. And so I'm not new to social media for sure, but also, and I didn't know any better of the old way of business before social media. It's right. Some of the different regulations that have come in have allowed us to have more access to social media than before. I
You
think
guys were locked out.
locked out for a long time,
Couldn't
right?
even have accounts.
Yeah,
When
it
I was in financial services.
yeah,
Yep.
and well, there was no way for them to monitor it, and they still monitor it. Just compliance in an SMRU is probably going to have this one pinged just because we're talking about it. But anyway, so what I thought was interesting, and this is also what I tell people that I coach, is I say the hard part about social media is it's not tangible, right? You can't say like I know that if I make 100 dials. The law of large numbers, 100 dials, 25 are going to pick up. Out of the 25 that pick up, 8 are going to say yes to a meeting, 5 are going to keep, 3 are going to ask me back, and 2 are going to do business with me. Might not work exactly like that, but I have those numbers, those algorithms I know. If I post 3 times a day for a month, I can't say, well, that's going to net X amount of business, right? So
Exactly.
what's hard about it, and where I think a lot of younger, and I don't even mean younger people age-wise, but younger in any kind of business experience, is they either think that's where all their business is going to come from, or they go, well, when I do post, nothing comes from it. So I realized I have to do it every day. And if I'm not going to do it, I have to pay somebody to do it, right? Because when I do post on Facebook or on LinkedIn and Instagram and all these places, some business comes from it at some point. But the other thing I noticed is when I don't, no business comes from it.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Right. And so to your point, whether I want to or not, when I don't get any business. And
Right.
but every once in a while, I'm like, who's that in my calendar? Like, I don't know. They saw you on Facebook or something, and they searched, or somebody commented your name on one of those Everything Plymouth, pages, and so they're coming in, and they turn out to be really good clients. And I'm like, well, thank God we're posted on the social media platforms. So so you both of you have been in business for a really long time. Tell me a little bit about some of the things that you've had to challenge. Like, what are some of your biggest obstacles over the years that you've had to overcome or adjust or to pivot?
I'll take it first because it'll be while you think about it. The first obstacle that we had to overcome was when I joined her,
Okay.
because when she first made that offer to me of come work for me, in her mind, she had wanted a mini me. And she is a constant learner, knows, like, she can pull stuff out of her mind that I'm just like, what? And so we're not, we both like people, we're both outgoing, we're not the same on that level. So when I went to work for her, she quickly realized I'm not her. And so one day she sat me down and said, this isn't working. So pick a side while you're in the office with me. And so she goes, who do you like better, buyers or sellers? And I said, I like buyers because I love looking at houses. And I said, so I'll take buyers. And she goes, great, because I like sellers. I said, awesome. So we went our separate ways. And people always say to me, how do you work with your wife? I said, well, first, I work for her, not with her. I said,
It takes a very strong man to admit that, doesn't it, Gina?
It does, indeed. Indeed, we do.
I can't imagine Bill ever going, well, I work for Gina.
Oh, he would. He would, 100%.
yeah, and
It's those 6'5" guys. They have all the
I'll tell you,
confidence
all the
to do
confidence
that.
in the
Trust
world.
me.
That's it. That's
yeah,
it.
and then it's just a matter of, I don't see her during the day. So we talk about our clients at nighttime. Sometimes they overlap. And over the years, when she got more into the coaching and management aspect, I had to step up and take both sides of the reins and keep it going while she was trying something different. She has come back full into the business, and now we kind of have a blend, and it depends on who's coming in and what we're doing. But I still always tell people that, when it comes to a listing, if it's going to be a complicated listing, which a lot of them nowadays are, because sellers have a different mindset than they did 5 years ago or 10 years ago. So I always bring her we do a joint listing presentation.
Nice. Okay. That's awesome. So that is actually not at all what I was expecting, because I was expecting something more market based, but I love that, right? Because that is a real obstacle, right? I mean, good for you for being able to go put your foot down and go, no, this is not how this is going to fly, right? So tell me, you can either piggyback off of that, or what are some things that you've faced over the years that you've had to pivot and maybe correct course on?
So many things.
Well, we have time, so
Well,
fire away.
I mean, in real estate, you always have to change things. Like, I saw a funny thing on social media, and it said, in your 40s, whoever thought like you'd have to be, into social media and doing this and doing that. And, today's world, you have to learn how to leverage AI, right? Because it's amazing and it can do so many things and lighten our loads and give us great ideas.
It writes phenomenal podcast intros.
Yes, exactly.
Just for the record, I don't know if I was gonna get away with taking credit for that, or
It creates great
when you're
images.
like, boy, business is shaping our communities. That's great. And I went, yeah, okay.
Well, a little
should
side note. I consulted social media on how to do a video. And that's attention grabbing, about a house that we had in East Bridgewater. And I ended up getting 10,800 views on that video. And my real estate coach, he said to me, he goes, I've never gotten over 10,000 views on any of my videos. And he's like, the student becomes the coach.
Yeah.
But it was AI.
Right.
I said the specific things that I wanted, the video to be like and what I wanted to do in a track. So learning AI has been kind of a shift, this year. Social media, understanding there's just so much to learn, and then also keeping up with real estate and the changes. So, inventory is rising right now. A lot of agents have never had to discuss with a seller being strategic with pricing. During COVID, you literally could put a house on the market, you'd have 20 offers. I mean, it was chaotic. It was very
The
chaotic.
Wild West.
Yeah.
Clients would call me and say, I put another offer and it's our 10th offer. We put in 50,000 over and we lost.
Right.
And I'm
Right.
like, what? Oh, I can't even believe you guys have to deal with this.
Yeah, yes, it was extremely, extremely difficult. And so now that we're out of that market and we're getting more into a balanced market, inventory is up across the entire country. Price changes are through the roof. So a lot of the agents that came in, before COVID and through COVID, they've never really understood how to really price real estate.
Right.
And so that's why you're starting to see so many price changes, and the days on market is going way up.
Yeah.
And, a lot of houses are having to come down about $100,000 in some cases. And it's because the agents don't really understand the market,
Right.
and that it has changed in how to counsel a seller to understand that you can't just put it anywhere you want. You have to stand out as the best value.
Right. Love that.
From the buyer side, 2 of my last 4 clients, when we've put an offer in, we've been told by the other agent we were picked because of who we are,
Oh, really?
because they know we can get us to the finish line.
Right. Right.
Because it's about, if you can't get to the closing table, it doesn't matter. So we've been noticing that agents are not just picking on price and everything else, but they're picking on, and they'll tell their seller, this is a good offer. This is an offer that will get you to the close.
Mm,
So
that's
I love
power.
that.
That's
Yeah.
powerful. Now, what would you attribute to that? Like, is there something in your process? Is it just being meticulous to the detail or knowing every aspect of everything and being able to remember it like an encyclopedia? What?
I will say there was that national lawsuit last year that came about for real estate, and it all was about educating either the sellers or the buyers. And a funny thing is when I joined her, she was adamant. Keller Williams had a plan in place, and years ago when I joined in 2014, and they said, when a buyer comes in, you have a buyer consultation. You go over the whole process. You go over all their needs. You talk about everything, from soup to nuts. And when I first saw her, I said, I don't want people to have to come in here for an hour and she said, if they're not willing to spend an hour of their time sitting with you to buy the biggest investment of their life, they're not real buyers.
Mm,
And so I took that mentality and then just started having people come in. And so when all of a sudden last year, they're like, you have to do buyer consultations. I'm like, have been.
yeah, have been. Right.
So
right.
that's one of the things that I think has kept us and made Colleen and company's name so strong, is the fact that we have been doing a lot of the deep dives for so long.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. That's great.
Toss the bottle.
Right. So right now, one of the biggest reasons that buyers are walking away from houses after they have an accepted offer is because of the home inspection.
Okay.
So,
Ugh.
yeah, I know. Right. But
Every time I go to buy a house, I'm like, ugh. And then I get through it and I'm like, I'm never doing this again. And then 3 years go by and I'm like, I should get into real
Yeah.
estate.
Yeah, well,
So bad. But anyways.
Yeah. And, a lot of agents don't educate the buyers about, what is a problem in a house and what isn't. And because I was in property management and I used to flip apartments and learned construction, and when I was little, I was always following my dad around and he was like, get me this and get me that. And so, when I would go to home inspections, I would pay attention. And
Right.
so then when I show houses, I mean, obviously, if the heating system has a lot of rust on it, you're going to want to think about replacing that. and just giving them like little tips as we're looking at the house so they know when they hear it from the home inspector, I already told them.
Got it. So
So
it's not a surprise to
it's
them.
not a
It's not
huge surprise.
what does that mean? Where does that where do we stand now? It's like, oh yeah, no, we were been doing that, right? There it is.
Right.
Nice. Okay. So how big of a role is networking in your business? I mean, obviously we've talked about AI, we've talked about social media. Are you big? Do you leverage the in-person networking? Is it part of your everyday, all day? I mean, tell me a little bit about that. How does that work over the years?
That is a really good question. I would say probably just the technology
Okay.
of the
You see how proud I was that I just
Networking.
asked a
that
really
was a
good
great question.
Okay, I'm
Brendan.
like,
Great question.
ooh,
Stump the jury.
look at her. I was like,
But no change is also an answer because networking is about relationships.
Yeah.
And building relationships hasn't really changed since forever.
Right. I mean,
so it's okay to say.
Yeah. I would say just the technology of it has,
Okay.
changed. Like we're doing a podcast
Yeah,
right now
yeah, yeah.
because of, the networking and it's our first podcast. So it's
That's awesome. And you're doing great. And I love it. How do you guys, we feeling it? Are we good?
Yeah,
Are we going?
yeah.
Rock
it's
and roll?
fun. Lots of fun.
So
For me, when I got into networking, I quickly, because I used to, before, from 2014 to 2018, before I took over her seat, I used to just use her network. So I'd call her and say, I need a painter. I need a contractor. And then when I joined that group and got to know all of them and they became my world, something in my head, and I actually did one of my 8 minutes years ago on this, I did a skit called I Know a Guy. And I had members of my group get up and I would say, every day of my life, when I'm talking to people, in the back of my head, I'm waiting for them to have a problem so that I can go, I know a guy. And it's literally how I live everything I do today. It's like when I meet people and they go, oh, and I really wanted this fixed. I know a guy. I'll send him to you. It's basically how I function. Because I think solving problems is the key to building trust in people. So
I got to be honest with you. This is why I think you and I have gotten along so well in the times that we met. That is literally my thing.
I was going to say, we're going to do a soundbite of Brendan going, I know a guy.
I got a guy.
I feel like I
know a guy.
Because we can add that in because we say it
all the time. And I've got a person for everything, right?
Yeah.
So it's interesting. I'll tell my little fun story is when growing up, I grew up in a very blue collar family, very hardworking, all the stuff that, the backbone of the country, all that, right? And I had this one uncle, Uncle Kevin, and he was always the I got a guy, right? And now what's interesting is he's not in business for himself. He was actually a correctional officer. But if you needed somebody or something, you called Uncle Kevin. He was the I got a guy. So when I got into business, again, about I'm going to learn everything about financial planning, but if I don't have anybody to tell it to, then I'm just the smartest broke guy at the office, and I don't want that. I said, well, I'm going to have to be the I got a person for everything guy, right? And then I'll never forget it. Uncle Kevin called me, and he said, I know you got a guy for everything, and I need a blank. And I went, when the I got a guy calls you, that's when you know you've officially made it, right? It's like the passing of the torch in the family. But still, it's just, it's so true that if you can't, and the other thing that I like to tell, whether it's somebody that works at Cornerstone or is in the networking group, I go, if people come to you for things that you don't do, they will definitely come to you for the thing that you do. And so if you can spend whatever white space that's in your calendar, and I want to touch on that flexible calendar thing again, because it drives me nuts when people are like, I want the flexibility. I'm like, I have the least flexible calendar on the planet, right? Like not going 9 to 5 is one thing and taking your lunch for a half hour at noon, right? That's not very flexible either. But to think that I can just wake up and do whatever I want, is not if you want to have any level of success.
You need to hire yourself every day.
Oh my goodness, right? And so, but yeah, it's if I can put myself in a position to at least offer the solution to the client, right? Whether it's I had clients come in last week and they said they had just moved from the North Shore down to Plymouth, and they said our dog is kind of stuck in our house all day, and we don't really know what to do. And I was like, oh well, my dog goes to a doggy daycare once or twice a week, and he goes, oh my God, we need to get. So I was able to, had nothing to do with their 401k, had nothing to do with their retirement goals. It was just being able to offer them, the Barker House in Plimpton, and be able to call Amber, who's the owner, and say, hey. right? Who's also a Networking Group USA, right?
Of course.
Of course, right? So it's just it's a wonderful value add to, I think, to our clients, and for some reason I think some people nowadays just were taught that they need to just be the best at what they do and only what they do, where it's really just about being a resource in the community,
Absolutely.
right? So
Yeah.
so what's your best networking story?
Oh, this is something that was very embarrassing, but
Okay.
way
you
back
share.
when, yes, and so we door knock sometimes in
Okay.
real estate, and back in 2005, the internet and stuff, it was just kind of taking off in real estate, and so I was talking to a gentleman and online. And
Ooh.
my friend and I were in the neighborhood, and I'm like, let's stop by. Like, I was just talking to this guy. So I went to the door and I knocked on the door, and a woman answered. And I didn't know that, like, he was married. He had never mentioned, not that it was a big deal or anything. But I said to her, hi, I met your husband on the internet.
Catfish.
Oh boy, I bet that went well.
Yeah.
Right.
You
And
don't
so
say that anymore, do you now, Colleen?
No,
Okay.
no.
All
But
right.
that's when I realized that I had to know the conversations to have with people. And
Yeah.
you don't just go to a door and not know what you're going to say.
That's too funny. That's too funny. All right, you got one to
Oh,
top that?
Well, no, just to tag on to her door knocking. Now, it was a fall day, so I was wearing, I believe, just jeans. I had my black boots on. I had a white shirt and a windbreaker on, and I always wear my credentials around my neck like a lanyard.
Yep.
So I look like a detective.
Oh boy.
So I took one side of the street, she took the other. Every other door opened the door for her. They're talking to her. I went through the whole street, knocking on the door, and I'd see the curtains move.
Yeah.
Nobody came to the door.
That's funny.
I said, it would have been easier just to go, open up, police.
Yeah. You look like either the police or the IRS, right? Either which, nobody's opening the door for that. That's
Exactly.
awesome.
Know your strengths.
Yeah. Not for nothing. You're a big dude, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of intimidating
Right.
too for it to
Nobody answers the door.
Right.
Because that's why I tell people, so now when we door knock, I basically just sit in the truck watching her.
So I don't get
So she's
kidnapped.
not
so you don't get
kidnapped,
kidnapped, right? Where there's not going to be put any lotion in the basket, right? That's so what's your do you have something that sticks out to you that has been the most successful networking event that you've had?
Instead of doing our summertime social, we did it at our house, and we did a potluck. And so everybody brought their spouses, some brought their kids, and
Yeah.
we have a yard that's made for entertaining. So
Okay.
it worked, and that way you get to meet everybody. And I think it really commits the group too, because once the spouses know where they're going on a Friday morning at 7:00,
Right.
kind
And
of
the
helps
fact that
them.
you guys meet live on Friday mornings at 7:00, and you have now currently the largest chapter in Networking Group USA.
Ooh, that tasted like
one.
that did not taste good coming out of her mouth. Let me tell
By
you.
one.
Let me tell you.
Only because we allowed another transfer. I just have to say, I'm just being generous.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's impressive.
Do
You
we
must
have
be-
the ability to mute her microphone too? Because the ego isn't gonna, and that's coming from me. Right? Done, boss. It's done.
I did want to say, like, one of the things that was interesting and has been so great about Networking Group USA is when we started and we came from the other group,
We
had,
call him the evil empire.
Stop it.
Gina had told us, you have to have 10 people. I said, I happen to only have 10 people. I said, I'm pretty sure they're all going to come, but we'll ask them. But when all 10 came over, it was 9 men and 1 woman.
Mhm.
And she was always tolerant of us. But now, the other day, it was pointed out to me, out of our 29, we have 14 ladies.
Whoa.
It's
okay.
funny you say this because
So-
our latest chapter, our newest chapter, just came over from the Evil Empire.
Yes.
And they also have all men and 1 woman. And my comment to them was diversification.
Yeah.
Come on. I know women that know women.
Well,
I know a guy.
So I will say I have a little bit of a different experience because I obviously was a big part of the Middleborough chapter, right? The mothership. And then when I moved my business to Plymouth, the Plymouth chapter at the time had been on its third overhaul. Like we had shut it down and tried to relaunch it 3 times. And each time it was really just coming down to the leadership and they were being pulled in other areas. They're great people, just they weren't focusing on growing NGU. So I said, well, I can't have the company NGU that I own and my company Cornerstone that I'm primarily running here have those 2 things not line up in the same town, right? So let me step away from Middleborough and take over Plymouth. And I realized with the Networking Group USA thing is the chapter's only as strong as your board, right? And then as I started to pull in who are the best people to help me run the chapter, because I can't do it by myself, and I never wanted to, which is why we designed it to have a board instead of a hierarchy. All of a sudden I look back and I'm like, my whole board is women. Right. And that wasn't designed on purpose. It was just I needed the brightest minds that could get stuff done. They could think 30,000-foot view, but also zip in and weren't going to come up with excuses. They were just going to get, excuse my language, but they were just going to get shit done. And then I'm looking at it and I'm like, we should bring like a guy in. This maybe. Would that
People
be?
can start talking about you, Brandon.
Yeah. So we did, right? Well,
Brendan and the
actually,
harem.
what is funny about that, and my wife will tell you this. She says, because we were just starting to date when I got kicked out of the Evil Empire. And, so I started doing those one-on-ones like we were talking about before we started to air. And most of the one-on-ones were not with male-owned business owners. It's just how it worked out.
It's just
It
how
was
Brennan
not meant intentionally. And to my now wife's credit, she went along with it, but she's like, so what are you doing? Who you having coffee with? Didn't you have one with Katie last week? And now it's Sarah this week? And she's like, I don't know. He just keeps going to all these coffee meetings with all these women. I don't know. It's supposedly it's for business, right? And so shout out to my wife for
She's
her.
thankful now.
She's very thankful and she understands it now. And she was very patient and understanding. And I do appreciate that. But yes, to that point, it's the networking and the relationships and being able to, when you start pulling everybody together and then we launch NGU, right? And we have our first night social and 150 people showed up. And I was like, this is what the coffees were.
Yeah.
This is what we were doing. I promise. I see her and her, right? And so, but I can see how if you are able to pull everybody in, especially to a residential house and open up your home and pull everybody together, it does bring that tight-knit community together.
Yeah, it's amazing how I just found out this last Friday at our meeting. There's a competition going on with 2 people for visitors.
Love that.
And I didn't know this. And they are amazing young people who have come into our group. And I did notice that one of them was every week or every time we met was bringing somebody or 2 people sometimes. And then the other person was bringing it, but much more low key about it. And then the other day he said to me, I think I have more than she does now. And I said, I wasn't keeping track, but apparently I should.
That's amazing.
Right? That's awesome.
We have a cup we can give that winner.
Yeah, absolutely.
We have an NGU
For
cup we
sure.
can,
Right?
It's also funny because you do have a competitive group because one of our members last week said, I was somewhere recently and I met someone from the Eastern Shoveltown chapter and they said that they had the biggest chapter. And I had to correct them. And I was like, well, actually. But it was really funny. So even cross, pollinating chapters is getting a little competitive, which I love. So
That's awesome. I love that.
They do want to get together with Middleborough because when they heard the mastermind about the co-socials,
perfect.
Umberto was like, why can't we do that? I said, we can.
Yes, we can.
I'll tell you,
We'll come to Shoveltown.
that guy is awesome.
Yes.
I'm
he's
always
amazing.
seeing that stuff, the stuff that he posts, and he
Yep.
invites me and all this stuff, and I'm like, I want to go to that. That's all. He's a great guy for your group.
He
Yeah.
is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fantastic. So that actually transitions into actually one of the questions that I did want to ask, because most of these questions have been off the cuff. I have all these questions and I haven't asked any of them, right? So, but what's a networking practice that you found to be truly effective in growing your professional circle?
Inviting.
Yeah, just always inviting people. And then once you have the chapter, for me, it's always identifying the people who want to go above and beyond and find their skill set and tap into that. That's why every year when it comes up towards the end of the year, I ask people, I go over what all the leadership seats are. And then I ask people if they want to have one-on-ones with those people, do it now, because if you want the seat, the person will step back.
Right.
And that's how we had 3 step up last year. And Umberto, when he took over the social media, the guy that had social media before was just one of our core 10 who said, we have to have 5 leaders. Fine, I'll take it.
Oh, right.
And we did nothing with it. And we were like, because we were like all older, and we were like, we don't even know what what we're doing on social media.
Right.
So we said we don't want to do that. And so when he came in, he goes, "Oh, I want that." We're like, "Take
Fire
it,
away, buddy.
take
Yeah.
it."
And that ties back in, right? Before you were doing it and you were growing great and it was fine and you didn't really need social media, but you weren't getting anything from it, which ties back
Right.
to that previous conversation. But once all of a sudden you start posting, can you or using and leveraging social media, is that the reason why you now have the largest chapter in the fleet? Who
Well,
knows?
I think it's part of it.
It's part of it,
absolutely. Yeah.
right? You might either be like even or one less, but now you're the top, right? So that's great there. So let me ask you this, because I feel as though not everybody has had the, what's the word I can use on a podcast, moxie, to be able to walk in to ask a pretty girl to go out to dinner, to be able to walk down the street looking like the DEA and knock on people's doors. So you obviously bring a different level of confidence. You bring a different level of professionalism and the ability to go, all right, if that's what I do, that's what I'll do. Not everybody has that, right? And so when you say always inviting, how do you invite? Because that's one of the things that I run into in my chapter a lot is like, we all are around a lot of business owners, but we don't necessarily invite them to join our chapter. We don't always invite them to join one of our meetings, whether it's because they're afraid, because they were tainted by the evil empire, or if they just don't, hey, join my, come to a thing, right? Like, how is it that what is the most efficient way that you've found to invite somebody?
It's if I meet somebody who again, with the back of my head thinking how many seats I have open and what I have to fill. When I meet somebody who I think would fit in that group, I explain to them what it is.
Okay.
And then I invite them. It's usually always face to face. I have done, when we first started our chapter, I went with a couple different people at different times. We went to different businesses and we literally just walked in.
Okay.
And we said, "Hi, we're new. We're in Easton. We meet at this time. We'd love you to come." We gave them a flyer and went to the next business.
Wow.
And we just kept blanketing Easton with flyers.
Okay.
Door knocking again.
Door knocking again, right? So if let's say you were
But
at
I can go in the door that way. It was open.
It was open, right? We're not soliciting, right? If you were to, and either one of you can answer this, right? If you were at a Chamber of Commerce event or a Rotary Club event or a Boys and Girls annual dinner or whatever it is, right? And now you have to, you want to invite this person. And so one of the things you said is, I explain what it is. How do you explain what NGU is?
If it's somebody that I have met and it's not that walking around thing, if it's just somebody that I'm having a conversation with, maybe one of my clients who owns their own business, I ask them how business is going. I kind of get to what their needs are. And then again, once I know what their need is, then I can introduce, I have this group of people that are amazing and their energy is contagious. And that is the one thing that we are told every time. One of our members says it at the close of every meeting, but he says the same thing, that there's something about our group. And if you ever want to come down at 7 a.m. and check us out, feel free.
And to have all that energy at 7 o'clock in the morning, as somebody that has a 4-year-old, a 3 or a 5-year-old now, a 3-year-old and a 7-week-old, there's not a lot of extra energy at 7 a.m.
I'm sure, but
soon.
But that's when they come in. I just think that they see the excitement. Even the visitors we have now, when we talk to them after, they talk about that our group is so energetic and funny. And I said, yeah, we do. We have a lot of laughs at our meeting. We keep it light. We are much more, because of the core group of us that have been there for 10 to 20 years. Some of the financial advisor and stuff that she brought in, 20 years of networking. And so we have that base. And so it is like a family.
Yeah.
So when people walk in, they get that very good family vibe, and then all of a sudden they say, I want to be a part of that.
Right.
And that's how we're getting them. The young members are bringing in the people, and the people are just seeing the energy and staying.
That's awesome.
So
that's awesome. I love that.
Yes.
So let's flip it into a different question on the other side of that coin. What's a common mistake in networking that you see people make?
Not doing one-on-ones.
Ooh, okay. Elaborate on that. Why do you say that? I agree, for the record.
As one of the members of my group always tries to reiterate to people, the one-on-ones is where the magic happens. The meeting is fun. It's basically it's a Friday morning social event over coffee, but that's what it is. You're not gonna you're not going to really know somebody at 60 seconds. So if you want to get to know them, you have to take the time to do the one-on-one, to get deep into their business, what drives them, what motivates them. And that's one of the things that, when we came to you, we were literally on the edge of disbanding. We thought we were done. And if it wasn't for Paul knowing
Donnie Wilson.
And shout out to Donnie, by the way.
Right.
Don't we love Donnie?
Absolutely.
Donnie Wilson and his whoopee. We love
board.
Donnie Wilson.
And then bringing us to this meeting. And when we walked into your group, that social, you guys had the energy and we could see the magic that we used to have. And we were like, this is it.
At LeBaron.
And so that's why
I remember that.
Right,
Yeah.
that's why when I came to...
I remember where you were standing when we met, actually, up against the wall over there. Yeah, that's great.
That's why when I came to you and I said, can I make changes to your playbook? And you said, what change? I said, mandatory one-on-ones. And I said, because...
I said, don't threaten me with a good time.
I said,
well, they are mandatory, but we just don't put it in writing.
People don't know how important it is. And we stress it. And one of the things that we've made it super easy for people is our flex player schedules it.
Oh, wow.
So she literally after the meeting, it goes out almost automatically, I think she set it up for, but it sends out. So it says, Brendan, you're meeting with Colleen this week, and takes the guesswork out of it. You're not going to think about it. You just know that's my one-on-one for the next 2 weeks.
Sure does.
Sure
does. I have a whole nother feeling about that, just because you got to have that energy and that leadership and that kind of, I feel like you have to have a chapter like that to be able to pull that off too. But then again, it might be the chapters that aren't like that probably need that, right? One of the things that, and I'll give credit to our chair over there with Gina, when I stepped down and asked Gina to, I couldn't think of anybody better to take over the mothership when I was stepping down, and so she started doing these because we meet online. For our business meeting. We say that the weekly meeting or the bi-weekly meeting is the business meeting, but you can't build a relationship on 60 seconds. The in-person one-on-ones is where you build the relationship, right? And so it's the best of both worlds. But Gina would go one step further, and at the end of the meeting, she would do breakout rooms. So she would force you into a room with one other person. Your only job in that 2 minutes was to compare calendars and put a time in the books. And as I took over the massive project of rehabbing Plymouth for the 4th time, I was like, I hate this. Oh, God.
He would try to leave.
I would try. I was like, oh, I got kicked out. I don't know what happened. Oh, I was trying to come out of the thing. But you know what it was? It was because I wasn't, I was in my head so busy that I didn't want the accountability. Right. And even though I was like, oh yeah, no, I need to do one-on-ones. One-on-ones are really important. And nobody believes in them more than I do. Right. But I was like, I'll get to them when I get to them, and I was never getting to them, right? And then when I took over Plymouth, I went, this chapter will fail unless we get these one-on-ones, because that's where you build the relationships, and that's where the magic starts to happen, right? Yeah. And then when you pull everybody together for whether it's a night event or an in-person or whatever, and so that really goes from there. So that's awesome. I love that. That's quite the task. I mean, you have a very different, I think that's a cool part for people to know that might be watching this, that may be interested. We have 16 people right now that are interested in opening new NGUs. And I think that was what we originally wanted when we first started NGU, was not for it to be so rigid. For somebody to be able to come over and say, we love it. Can we just tweak it, right? It's like, yeah, you can make the cake. You can frost the cake with whatever frosting you like. Just don't forget the eggs. You know what I mean? Right. Like, of course. And so hopefully one of the things that people get through these conversations or visiting the different chapters is they all have the same baseline, right? But the car is painted differently depending on the flavor of the people that are in the group, right? So I hope that comes through true, and I think you guys are a testament to that.
Yeah,
pretty awesome.
I mean, and I would say part of our, especially the first year, but even now, part of our success was Gina and Ben have been amazing. Like literally. At first, we used to call them, text them, email them. Now we're just trying to email and give them some space. But we used to be like, we need help. What's going on? We want to do this, and we just kept going on. And they were never what, they were always gracious. And that made us also feel like we are where we should be. This is where we should be.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. See, look at you. Oh, so, well, let me ask you a question, not just in Networking Group USA or networking groups. What is something that you've seen in the real estate industry, a big or a common mistake that people make networking?
Handing out business cards. Like it's, you
Yeah.
know.
Comes up every time. And by the way, that's twice because we've only had 2 podcasts.
Yeah.
But it comes
That's
up
2 for
every
10.
time, right?
Put a QR code on
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Right. And
Make it valuable. Yeah.
right. And not scheduling a time with that business to learn about them, because you're not going to get business from anybody if you just hand them a card. They're like, okay, who was this person? And so I would say, instead of handing out the cards, just talk to a few people, but, talk to them for 5 minutes and say, hey, do you want to get a coffee sometime? I'd love to learn more about your business. What is a good referral for you? What would you like me to say about you? All that kind of stuff. And then people are more interested in doing business with you when they know you care about them.
For sure.
So I would say that's probably the biggest mistake I see any business make in networking.
Mm-hmm.
I like that a lot. I think one of the things that we're trying to shift at our place of business is also, when you're going to have a meeting, go in with a purpose, not necessarily an agenda, right? But go in with a purpose. And especially when you go to those night events, right? The Chamber of Commerce is fantastic. I'm on the board over at the Plymouth Chamber, and we love that. And a lot of people that are in NGU cross-pollinate with the chambers, and it's just a great organization. But they have all those night events, right? And you just show up because you got to go. But then they just show up, or I'll talk to somebody, how'd it go? You're like, oh, it's good. I met some people, got some business cards. I gave out 40 business cards. So, there was that. And so that's good. So I'll just wait for my phone to ring, I guess. But I go, well, what were you trying to get out of that meeting? Or like, what were you trying to get out of that event? And they're like, well, I got to go. I got to network. I'm like, that's not networking. You showed up as a social event. You went to the bar, you had some good conversations, you gave out a bunch of cards, and you ran home. I said, you just kind of took a vacation with a bunch of strangers. So could we instead go in there and say, if I'm going to be here, and I'm going to be here for 2 hours from 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock at night, right, on a Thursday, can we say, in my time here today, I would like to meet a blank? Now, that's not shutting off everybody else that I might meet, but I would like to meet a CPA, an estate planning attorney. And you know what? My networking group really needs a chiropractor, right? So if I can just meet those 3 people, I'm going to meet everybody, but if I can walk on it that way, at least when you get back in the car, you can go, okay, tonight I wanted to meet a CPA, an estate planning attorney, and a chiropractor, and I met 50 people, but I at least met those 3.
Right.
You can at least chalk that or check that box that was a win, and that was progress. It might have not been perfection, but at least you were moving in the direction of going, that was not a waste of time. Right. And so I think that's something to piggyback off of what you were saying of just going in and handing out business cards. It's like, my God.
Right.
It's the
Absolutely.
worst. They fall down to the bottomless pit of purses
Coffee
and bags and coffee cups.
What you
right?
focus, you will find.
What you
Yep.
focus, you will find. Right. And so what advice would you give to somebody who's hesitant about starting to network?
Get over it.
And cut. Okay. Awesome. That's good. I think we've got that clip.
Get over it.
So
Well,
we're looking for
And get over it.
Don't be a bitch.
Yeah,
right.
Well,
Okay.
any entrepreneur has to be passionate about what it is that they're doing, and they need to want to share that with people and help people along that journey. And if you're not able to talk to other professionals
Mm.
about what you're doing, you're going to have a really hard time building a business.
Okay.
So I'm very always short and direct. However, I think it's
You
very
don't say.
I do also think there's a difference between networking groups and events, which we talked about earlier today. Like, being a part of a networking group is very different from going to a networking event, which can be very intimidating. Going to the group for the first time might be intimidating, but as you build that family, and if you go into Charlie's group or Brendan's or mine, it's welcoming, and people understand why you're there, and there may be a seat for you. You go to a networking event, sometimes it's like piranhas, and you're in there and you're just, our networking groups do events, but we're a team going in onto the field together.
Right.
We're not just a bunch of solos
Versus walking
trying
into 200 people, just a sea of business cards
exactly
with little tag
like
names.
playing
and
pickup
you're-
basketball and
yeah.
being like, "Ooh, like how's this gonna go tonight?"
Yeah. How about you?
For if it's coming to our group, and we've had a couple people that have come in that are very shy, or they talk really, really soft.
Okay.
We pull them aside basically after the first meeting, and we offer them guidance. And one of the people we use is the plumber in our group. When he first started, he And he loved to tell the story. He's like, because he'll tell you, when I first came to this group, I couldn't put 2 words together. And then, at one point, he was one of the leaders in the group, and he is so well spoken now, and he gives all the credit back to our group. So I always tell people, hey, if you're worried about it or if you're nervous about it, talk to Mark for a second. And
Yeah.
Mark will come over and be like, oh, you got to just focus on it and you practice, write things down. After a while, it becomes second nature, and it makes you a better person when you're in public. Because like for him now, when he meets a client, he has no fear at all anymore. And he has
Wow.
no apprehension because he knows how to public speak.
That's awesome.
So
I feel like, who comes to mind? Carly.
100%.
Right? Because Carly Luongo, who just came as a guest, and she does property and casualty insurance in the Middleborough chapter. And when she first joined the chapter, she's very soft-spoken, right? I mean, she's great when you get her one-on-one, right? I mean, she's ball of energy and just awesomeness, right? But when the group, she was very timid, and what you could tell on those 60 seconds, it was hard. And then she started writing things down and reading them, and then she built a little bit more confidence, and now she's on the board.
When I invited her on the board, I didn't realize how shy she really was because she'd been doing such a good job. And
Yeah.
then, asking her to run a meeting, and we're getting there. But
Yeah.
that's one of the intangibles about networking that people miss, is becoming a better business person.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because you're surrounded by strong business people that have nothing to do with your business, but they want to help you in your business.
Right.
And I try to explain that to people sometimes too. You might not get a lot of referrals off the bat, but if you look around and learn from the people that are there, you're going to have a better business in the end.
For sure.
So-
For sure. And I think one of the things that came to mind when you were talking about, best practices or what somebody should do when they're hesitant is I think too many people judge other people on what they say and not the questions that they ask. Right. And so what I mean by that is everybody's trying to come up with the next thing to say, the next elevator pitch, the thing that's going to make them different. I have a guy in my organization that just is really good at asking questions, and he's phenomenal at networking, and his success rate has gone through the roof amongst his peers. Right. He's just leaps and bounds. And it's because every time he's in a situation, he's asking the right questions rather than trying to impress with everything. And as somebody who likes to talk a lot, that is something that I've tried to work on. I've learned from him. He's actually my junior associate, if you will. And I'm like, I got to be more like that, right? Or Ben Altman from New England Glass and Remodeling. If you can see it through it, we can do it, whatever.
It's your fair choice.
Yeah. Oh, it's sure. So I love you, Ben. So at the end of the day, though, like I'll bring Benny out golfing with a bunch of guys, and by the time we're done, they're like, hey, are you going to go play next time? I was like, I wasn't invited. And Benny's like, I was. Right? It's because everybody likes Benny more than they like me. I'm like, I'm the one that brought him. Anyway, but it's because he's
more
so
interested than interesting.
Yeah,
You have to be more interested.
He's always asking questions, and he genuinely cares about, what's going to come out of your mouth. And it's not always about, let me tell you about me. It's about, I want to learn more about you, which I've learned in networking, specifically through networking groups and one-on-ones. That's the right way to do a one-on-one. It's ask more questions than statements that come out of your mouth.
Absolutely.
Yes.
With that said, can the producer ask a question?
Sure.
Because I first of all, my name's Derek Perry. Welcome to studio.
And the host of Hey Coach podcast.
The Hey Coach podcast. This is the home of the Hey Coach podcast. I look at real estate agents like they're become like a doctor, somebody in your family. How do you, Colleen, build that relationship with your clients? You say you like working with the sellers. I mean, you're talking about the biggest investment of their life. You're talking about financially, they're probably not sleeping at night when they're getting into the biggest. How do you develop that relationship, keep that relationship, get a repeat relationship, so to speak, in your business?
I would say it's about getting to know the person and what's important to them and what their goals are, and then delivering those things. And when you care about people, they know it. And I mean, a lot of our past clients are like really good friends now. And I often joke and say, like, literally, if we had a fight, I could probably knock on a couple of doors and say, can I sleep over? Not that we have a fight.
Oh, I
but-
thought you were trying to rally the troops to get in a
That's
fight.
what I
like, hey, listen.
I was like, we drive
no,
it.
We
no,
got a basketball
I mean,
court, 6
yeah.
o'clock.
And then we do events for clients, and we stay in touch with them. And it's not just about when we're doing the business of real estate. It's about, staying in touch with them and inviting them over to parties at our house and different social things that we do. Or like we just did a walk, a fundraiser, and we invited people. And so we just, make them feel important, and then, we adopt them and we just don't let them go.
Yeah.
Love that. You
Great answer.
We'll find you. Right? That's awesome.
As part of the buyer consultation, one of the things that we tell them is that when they work with Colleen and Company, it's not just to the closing and all you see is my taillights.
Mm.
Like, we are your family forever, or as long as you want us.
Mm.
And they sometimes look at us like, once I buy the house, what do I need you for? And that's when I explain, well, if you need a plumber, an electrician, a
Yeah.
chiropractor, if you think of it, I've got one.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay. And it's the ones who call us, and I get it at least probably once a week where somebody will call me and say, hey, I'm looking for X. And I'll say, okay, hold on. And I'll send it to them. And that, I think also, now they start to get why we're their realtor for life.
Yeah.
I think
so-
you underestimate that you're 100% credible too. I think you can put anything you want on social media. You can advertise all you want on any form of advertising. But when you call someone and you have a personal relationship and they're just recommending someone else,
Right.
that's 100% credible.
Yeah.
And you have a huge network to be able to offer somebody, it sounds like. So
Yeah.
kudos to you guys.
Thank you.
I love it. So what's next for you in your business that our listeners can look out for? Be on the lookout for.
More funny videos.
More funny videos.
Sorry, we got
I
another.
saw a couple videos there, Charlie.
I had so there's a funny story to that. One of my really good friends in Florida, his daughter is a big wrestling fan. I'm a big wrestling fan.
Oh, okay.
So, I will do a text chain with him and his daughter, and we drive him nuts. We talk about wrestling. So they were out they were mini golfing together, and one day I called him, and the phone rang. Her phone rang, and he picked up her phone because she was golfing, and he looked at it, and it said the company. And he goes, "Who's that?" And she goes, "Well, Charlie is never in any of the videos, doesn't do any of the voiceovers. I don't really think he works there, but it's called Colleen and Company, so I call him the company."
Oh, there it
So
is.
that's how she put it in her phone, which made me laugh out loud because I'm like, I don't want to be in front of the camera. That's what I have her for.
Gotcha.
And so when she did that funny video that got all of those views, I made fun of it this past weekend, and I am trending right now.
Oh, nice. Very good.
But a lot of it is humor. That's what. So I think for what's going to be coming out next for us is more social media humor, because let's face it, the world needs more humor nowadays. So
I love that. Well, we'll have to make sure that as we're editing this,
Yeah,
that we'll throw up a QR code or something to get the links out to your funny videos and TikTok and your. Is there anything else? Is there any other big things coming down the pipeline that our listeners can be on the lookout for?
We're just always looking to improve, get better, grow our business. And that really just comes from caring for people. And we're going to continue to do that.
Now, that's a perfect segue into my last question. Okay. It's a two-part question. Okay. If you had to give a 30-second commercial, right, to sell Networking Group USA, and then we're going to do your business. So I'm going to let one of you do NGU, which obviously I think we know who's going to pick which one, right? But I want to know for our listeners, and it will probably be, if it comes out right, Instagram reel or a clip or something, right? A TikTok, right? But if you had to give me a 30-second on the best reasons why somebody should choose Networking Group USA to network with, and then we'll go with why somebody should choose Colleen and Company to buy or sell their real estate. So start with NGU. Go. And go.
nice. 30.
How's that?
So basically what I would tell somebody when I met them is that I lead one of the biggest networking groups in the South Shore, and that if you want to grow your business, this is the place to be. And if you can't be with us, I know many other chapters that I can hook you up with, but networking is going to move your business to the next level. Without networking, you don't have the ability to grow as fast or as
strategically.
as you'd like to. And
Yeah.
so I believe that networking has worked for us. I've seen it work for so many people in our chapter that I believe that is the key to success in any business to last longer than 5 years.
I love that. And Networking Group USA was just that little extra that gave you the camaraderie and the purpose that you were looking for, right?
Yes.
I love
Kept him
that.
in the game.
Kept him in the game. Love that.
They were looking at him.
Well, when we hear we were going to disband before we found NGU, and now we have this great, huge,
Yep.
giant fleet, or the largest ship in the fleet. Did we mention that you have the largest chapter, the Shovel Town, located in Easton, Massachusetts?
I don't want to tell her. I already have 2 guests in the pipeline too. So
Oh, gosh.
I'll be playing this for my chapter as our educational piece.
Exactly, right? Let me show you what they're doing over in Easton, right? All right, so for Colleen and Company, it doesn't need to be 30 seconds, but what is your best commercial or what is your best sales pitch? Well, let me rephrase that because I think sales pitch is a little, it's a little outdated, but what can you tell our listeners is the reason why somebody should use Colleen and Company when it comes to real estate?
I would say the best reason to use Colleen and Company is that we explain things to both our sellers and our buyers so they have an understanding. We never leave anyone without saying, this is what's going to happen next, or this is what to expect, and people's goals become our goals, and we advise people on how to hit them. And we're not pushy, but we're persistent. And we really do care about people, and we want to see people win, because in this market, it really does take strategy to be able to navigate it and not get burnt.
I love that. I love that.
me too.
Very good. Thank you so much for joining. We have Charlie and Colleen from Colleen and Company, and we will say the founder and leader of the Shoveltown chapter in Easton of Networking Group USA. And so to all of our listeners out there, thank you so much for joining and for listening. And this is the Power of Networking Group USA podcast. Real connections, real growth, real business.